Good evening. You are listening live to the Xtreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob, from the Pinos Palace, just west of Orlando, Florida. I am in the Xtreme Studios. I've got on screen with me tonight from the Great Midwest one RDV. Tonight, we're doing a rip stream here, going over Michael Madsen, who just recently passed away.
Remembering stream.
Yeah,
I
that's
hate,
what
I
rip
hate saying
means.
rip because it just seems so cliche. Everybody does it. So
Well, everybody's not us. We're the only people that matter, especially here on this and all that. And frankly, Michael Madsen, what can you say? I'll start off by saying, oh, the Species guy, the this guy, the that guy. This guy's very prolific.
yeah,
To me, RDV, despite what people's ability to deal with success or fame, fortune, all that kind of stuff, is not something we're really discussing here.
yeah,
We're discussing a guy that, to me, he reminds me of like the other Baldwin brothers or the other Skarsgårds, the other whatevers, because he's a very solid person. I never think of him as a lead guy, but he always had a decent presence. He could carry a lot of stuff, and he was a very valuable guy. I never thought of him as a bad actor or anything, too. And as popular, or I should say, as I'm not going to say popular, but as prolific as he was, you can't do that unless you fulfill some need. And despite this guy's personal struggles, off dealing with alcohol or whatever, his drugs and that kind of stuff, everybody has their demons to deal with. This guy, I thought, was very solid in what he did. I clearly remember Species. For a lot of reasons, but I thought he was very strong there. And there was a point, and I can't pinpoint if it was that movie or earlier, maybe Reservoir Dogs, where people thought this guy's going to go nuclear. But for some reasons or another, those things end up not happening, like JCVD or others. So when you think of Michael Madsen, what comes to mind?
Well, it comes to Michael Madsen. Reservoir Dogs is the first thing I go to, but he was also in the Hateful Eight. You know, He was basically big friends with Quintino, because he was basically his bad guy, you know? And it was kind of crazy because, like, I was going over his career. So I was going you guys were live earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And I was reading about it. It's like his big break was was Thelma and Louise. You know?
Yeah.
He was Jimmy, you know? And I was watching interviews with him talking about, I believe it was Gina Davis and Susan Sarandon, I think it was.
Okay.
Yeah. He's talking about he loved just had the fun with that set because they were two, like, smart, educated women on there, and there was no bullshit. They all just had fun with this, and he went on from that to a couple years later to do Free Willy, because he said, like, up at this point, I played all these bad guys. I kind of wanted to play the good guy because it's challenging.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, and then as you anybody who's gone through his IMDb, dude has over almost 350 movies, and only 4 Tarantino movies, including Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and Reservoir Dogs, Hateful Eight, and Kill Bill. Those are those ones he did for him. And he said, like, the reason I did a lot of these films, like, people are like, look at my list. He's like, wow, he did a lot of shitty films. He's like, well, I have children, and I'd rather, be known as the parent that goes and does the shitty movies and gets paid and puts, pays for my kids, stuff.
Wants to work.
He had, he was on his 3rd marriage before he was found passed, or basically dead on Thursday in his Malibu home. He suffered a huge cardiac arrest. I don't know what drugs he did. I do know he was a heavy smoker.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he was drinking like Tom Sizemore and doing like cocaine and all that stuff. But like Tom Sizemore is another actor just like him, They're supporting actors, and that's what Michael Madsen was. He was a great supporting actor, never really a main lead. Surprisingly, though, I did learn, though, he did say he turned down John Travolta's role in Pulp Fiction to do Wyatt Earp. Because he said, I've done the bad guy role. He says it's him. It was always trying to do a role different that was more challenging, because he was the kind of actor. I don't want the easy role.
Right.
I want the role that's going to challenge me. And he says, like he said throughout his career, he's like, every character or every movie I've done, it's a part of me as I go on. I bring it to the next film. It's a learning experience. And he said, like, I'd never trade it for anything else, but he said, like, it was just a fun career. And he said, he said before he passed away, he was talking about, now I'm in my later years. Now he said, I'm really looking forward to see what the rest of my career is going to be like.
Yeah, this kind of makes. I'm thinking of a movie that I watched recently. I've seen it before. We've talked about it before in a Xtreme show. It's called Sicario, right? Fantastic visuals. Benicio
del Toro totally revitalized his career.
Yeah, but there's a guy in there that when I saw him, I'm like, man, this it's hard to. I've been waiting for an excuse to bring his name up, but you and I, or at least I've watched the show. I thought you did in passing when we talked about it one time offline. Was a show called Burn Notice on USA. It's about a
Never
spy.
watched it. Never watched
Okay.
an episode, but I know about it. And it was
This guy is like a modern day spy, and it's in South Florida, Miami, and it
Mhm.
was an action show, and it had Bruce Campbell in it actually as a supporting actor. So that was another reason why I watched it because we love Bruce Campbell, right?
Yep.
So I watched most of the seasons, and it was fairly standard TV, but it was good, solid. And here's the guy that I go, he acts really well in there. He can do accents, he can do stuff, and all that. And in Sicario and other films, I see him, I'm like, oh yeah, I know this guy's going to be good. But when I see him, I go, he's a guy that I just feel like I'm not saying he's trying too hard that he can't do it, but it's more of a scene stealer, not in a good way. Like, look at me, I'm so good. I'm not going to blend into the scene. And so someone like a Michael Madsen, I look at and I go, he's somebody that you could put him in like a $200 million blockbuster or $200,000 independent film, and you're going to get the same performance out of him. And even if it was a heavy kind of role, which I think he excelled in, I felt like he's the kind of guy that even though he wanted to stay gainfully employed, I look at him as like a Robert Mitchum type or somebody from the old days, and that he, to me, seems like he should have been cast on a show that dealt more like with 1940s gumshoe kind of stuff or 50s.
And
it just has that vibe about it.
It's
and
funny.
This really jumped out to me when I saw Sin City.
Dude, it's funny that you brought up Robert Mitchum. He said he grew up watching Robert Mitchum and Humphrey Bogart. He said how these guys like were just phenomenal actors. He said he always aspired to be like them because there isn't many actors like them at all.
Right.
At all. They're kind of professional way they did everything. Kind of died when they died.
Bogart, to me, and we've covered several of his films here, and we love him so much, is that he looks so natural.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a great thing. We kind of mentioned, like, if you see a Tom Cruise film, you're going to get Tom Cruise. It doesn't matter what the film is. That's not necessarily a bad thing.
No.
But it's hard for me to go, that's not Tom Cruise. Somebody like Michael Madsen, I just go, we're going to get like a vibe from or whatever. So to me, finding a role that suits him, and I'm going to go back to Species because I thought, this is a guy I know nothing about. I don't know if I had seen Reservoir Dogs at this point. I remember Species because of the alien thing, and it was the
Mr.
model.
Blonde in Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah, but he's a guy that, like, when he's in charge of a small group and all that, he just seemed like he had a naturalness about him. That look, Mitchum was high and drunk half the time. I don't really care, but he's got great presence. Bogart is so natural. Madsen has that with him. You could say some actors have it, some are physical actors, some are great technicians. I really don't know what to call him other than he was just quietly confident, and I appreciated about him when he brought that into a role.
Yeah, he said he was talking about basically when it came to Bogart. He said like Bogart didn't really make it big until after a couple movies he had on his belly, and then it just came natural, and then he became a huge star. He said like he's like I did a lot of these movies, it's like small parts here and there. I was comfortable with it, but then like as soon as I started doing some Tarantino movies, I started to get noticed more. And then. So once the genre started changing again, though, he's like, then I was kind of forced, I had kids on. If I was single, he said I would have said no, I ain't taking these crappy movies. But he said like it's mainly because I have my kids now. He left behind 4 sons and a daughter, from like 2 previous marriages. I'm not sure if he had any with his late wife,
right.
Diana. But and then the other sad thing about this before. Was it like just 3 years ago? His oldest son committed suicide. So he was kind of like dealing with that too. So I don't know if he was, like I said, I don't think he was a habitual user or anything like that. I don't really watch a lot of stuff about celebrities,
right?
But I always know that he was a smoker. He always smoked on set, so I don't imagine he probably smoked offset too. Unless he was one of the fortunate guys who could just smoke there, and leave it there. The studio.
He looks like a guy that should be smoking and drinking.
Oh, and so the last thing I actually saw him acting wise was a couple years ago, 5 years ago. It was called is a small part in a fan film for a Batman film called Dying is Easy. He played Harvey Bullock. And I remember just doing like, I remember seeing like, wow, he just aged really, because the last time I saw him was like Reservoir Dogs in the early 90s stuff, I haven't really followed his career because he did a lot of like movies. I just like, I don't care about this. I don't care about this. And so once I saw how old he was, I was like, dude sounds rough. But honestly, though, what surprised me though, he's 67 years old. So it kind of like, so that once I learned that, he was like 60s. I was like, well, now it makes sense why he looks so old. It's not from the smoking, because some people can actually look older from smoking, but so yeah, but yeah, I said like he was always the bad boy. I remember him like thinking when they came out with that game back in the well, it was called Mad Max. I kept thinking if they did a live action Mad Max,
Mad
it
Max or
got
Max Payne?
or sorry, not Max, sorry, Max Payne, my bad. Max
Okay.
Payne. And I kept thinking, he's a dead ringer. He could have played that role with a life. Instead, they went with Mark Wahlberg. And I was like, what are you guys doing? And then they did nothing to do with the game whatsoever. And I kept thinking, like, if you want a hard boiled like detective, they know that's framed for murder and is on the run, trying revenge. Get this guy. Get Michael Madsen. He just oozes like masculinity and everything. So, but other stuff he was talking about and in interviews was talking about. Yeah, people always ask me about Donnie Brasco. What was it like working that? He said, "Well, it sucked because the other two got all the money. I got nothing. It was." He was like, "I showed up for the work, and then there was no money left for me. It all went to Robert De Niro and Johnny Depp." He's like, "It was experience, all right. One I don't want to repeat again."
Yeah. Hey, Rose
But
is in chat there. Yeah,
yeah,
you bring up something interesting because obviously he can sit there and say, "Hey, I
yeah,
wanted to make money. I want to stay gainfully
yeah.
employed." Then there's a whole don't automatically assume because somebody's talented they make a lot of money,
Oh yeah,
or somebody makes a lot of money they're talented. I
it's
mean, it's not a direct relationship. There's a lot of politics and there's a lot of stuff that goes on. Everyone
a
talks
lot
about
of
Epstein
who do
and
you
casting
know? You
couches.
know.
He's a guy that I think just took a lot of roles,
Mm-hmm.
and whatever his roles were going to be, he had found his ceiling at that point and had no problems with it. And I give him credit for it because it's not an ego thing
No,
necessarily.
no.
It's hey, if you don't take this role and it sounds stupid or it's beneath you, well then maybe not gonna get a bigger role or whatever. So
Yeah.
he's like a lot of people that just would show up, do his job, and be done with it. All that. Nobody says Samuel Jackson doesn't do the same thing. He's just a bigger star than Matt.
He had said like most times, when he goes on movie sets, with actors, they don't, really get along, or they do get along just enough for professional. And that said, you don't hear from him whatsoever.
Yep.
He said after he did Hateful Eight, he was shocked how well everyone bonded, became friends, and he had still had contacts with everybody from they all talked even after the movie is years gone. So he built some friendships for that. He's like that whatever reason that whole bunch of guys on there where it's just very outward and just they quickly became like brothers. He said, you know,
The
um,
bonding thing is interesting because when we cover stuff, I always like to say we're 80s based because I'm the
mhm,
80s guy and you're the 90s guy. You talk about stuff like you send me some links. Hey, how realistic was this movie or this kind of scene? I go, oh no, it was real like it, or no, this is bullshit.
yeah,
And we do the same thing, right? So when I think of groups working together, I think of and again, I use this as an opportunity to pimp John Carpenter out. A lot of his people he would
yeah,
use over and over again, like a Kurt Russell, because you know what you're getting, right? Or we talk about with Jackie Chan films, right? That he would work with the stunt crew and you know what you're going to get. And it's great. I think that something like a Mazda, it's worked with a lot of different people. You have to have an ability to be able to, whether you like them or not, get along with them. And I think it's interesting because the big clip floating around that I've heard forever is Schwarzenegger, right, with James Cameron, right, and he doesn't want to say I'll be back. He's like I think it sounds stupid in German. We don't say that. We say I will be back. And he goes, "Who are you, the
yeah,
fucking writer? Because I wrote it. I don't tell you how to act. You just say what I wrote. But then some people like Clint Eastwood were like, "Hey, RDV, you're going to go from here to here, and you're going to say hi and blah blah blah, and I'll be back.
mm-hmm.
All right, you did it twice." Okay, we got enough. Let's move on. It's just amazing how much unique experience someone like him that has been on all these different films and roles, whether you call him an A-list or B-list or whatever,
Yeah,
that he's an employed actor doing something. He has seen more than most actors ever will.
yeah. One of my guilty pleasures of his movies back in the day was '90s is called Executive Target. I don't know if you've heard of
Okay.
that. It had Keith David, Roy Schneider, Angie Everhart. Basically,
Straight to
uh,
DVD.
straight to DVD, bro. Yeah, a criminal who's basically criminals forced a stunt driver, played by Michael Madsen, to commit a robbery and help kidnap the president of the United States. It is the most '90s plot ever. And this is back when Angie Everhart was just doing she was just blown up. She was doing the movies with Richard Grieco and I think she also did Max. Was she's also in Maximum Risk with Jean-Claude Van Damme? I can't remember if it was her or not.
I
But
don't think so, but I don't.
no. But I said like it was a '90s movie, and it was just like because I was watching Angie because I just discovered Angie Herbert, so I just started watching all her movies, and that's how I discovered all like Richard Grieco and all the other like B movies stuff.
They're
So it
making
was just
money.
yeah, man. It's like I said,
They're
it's
all
like
making money.
it got a 4.6 out of 10. But whatever reason, like I love some of these B movies, like and whether people like them or not, it's just like I just resonate with them, you know. And so yeah, I like a lot of the B movies that he's done, and it's just getting to the point where like he's like I think a lot of people are the like media wants it's like oh you should like these big blockbuster hits, but sometimes the B movies just hit better, you know.
Well, at the time, again, we go back to where we discussed some meta ideas here. And that's in the '90s. You had that, or really starting in the '80s. Jaws 50th anniversary, right?
Yeah,
So blockbusters, right? Now you've got a secondary market in the late '70s, early '80s with VHS, even though Betamax was technologically superior. Porn ushered it in. Now you've got DVDs and VHS, which are both viable. So you could say, hey, Species was good, but we're not going to budget for Species 2, but we'll
yeah,
budget one for this, and it can go to straight to DVD, and we'll make our money off of that. So someone
hmm
like a Michael Madsen could do that, and so there's nothing wrong with that. And you have the
well,
golden age growing up in the '90s of that
dude,
happening.
all the early Charlie Sheen movies, The Chase, and some of those, like then the Getaway,
Hmm.
was another one too. It's like, yes, it was like I said, it was like really nice to be able to just go buy a DVD for $2.99, and
Yeah,
then bring it home, and then I'd get the used ones. I'd go to the used exchange center, and I get the used DVDs and like bring them in and just watch them. And like honestly, yeah, that was fun. Instead of having to like go to Blockbuster and hope it's there, stuff. But yeah, literally, I used to do it all the time with that. And then GameStop came around, and then GameStop, pretty much was putting an end to a lot of the video game stuff. But um, yeah, I've always said I love straight to DVD movies because they pretty much were the made for TV movies in the '80s. You know, they just felt like they were made better. It might be a low budget, but they had more like of a like I guess I don't
well,
know.
look, it's a professional publication, right? You've got
Yeah,
money, you've got a budget, you're producing a product, you got to hit your marks, you got to get in under budget and on time. Typically, I'm not saying that always happens. Certainly on big
yeah,
blockbusters, they don't. But you're absolutely right. I've mentioned this before. Currently, with the small Bloomhouse, a model of here's a small budget. Go do what you're going to do. Have your vision on. We just need these constraints met. Boom. Okay, we gave you 10 million, made 30 million. Hey, that's great. We made plus 5, 10 million on it. So that can fund our next film. And that would be whatever. Nothing wrong with that. And I think you're going to find more gems that way of decent quality ones rather than ones that are hit or miss. And so he's, who reminds me of in a way, although probably not, is probably a half a level below or maybe two.
yeah.
The guy I first remember from Lost, but then I went,
So
wait a minute. No, I know this guy from Millennium.
Josh Holloway.
No. Then I remember from the TV show that I love with Lance Henriksen called Millennium. And then I go, wait a minute. He played like an evil stepdad, and that's Terry O'Quinn.
Oh, do you know
He's in
Terry
fucking
O'Quinn's now?
everything. Huh?
He's currently in Resident Alien.
Is he? Terry
Yeah,
O'Quinn? See,
yeah.
he just shows up in everything.
He
So
was
he's
the alien tracker hunter guy, and then they just keep bringing him back, and like now he's like a cyborg, like guy like in the show.
Are you serious?
Yes, I'm serious.
Yeah.
It's just a trip. I love it because I reckon I'm like, oh my gosh, that's just John Locke.
Yeah. The floss.
So,
Um,
but yeah, and
uh,
well, that was the other guy. The guy who played I forgot what his name was, Matt or something like on the show. He was
who knows?
he was the main he was the doctor guy. He was the guy who was pretty much opposite of Josh Holloway, vying for whatever the main girl, the brunettes, affection. But he was in a lot of different movies too, popping up. And it said like, yeah, Michael Madsen was always the guy. It's like even in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I just love his performance. He said he enjoyed playing bad guys, because it just came so naturally to him. It's like it's almost kind of like it's like I'm born to be a bad guy. It was, but he said like he loved also having challenging roles, and I appreciate with actors like because Val Kilmer was like that. Val Kilmer's like, yeah, I've done this. I want to try something different now, and I may suck at it, but I feel like I can work on that, and as I keep going, I can make it better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another guy too, and I brought Millennium and Terry O'Quinn in that, but what I remember about Millennium was that it's like X-Files is cute and it's nice, but I like something that is a little more edgy and darker and deal with conspiracies, and that's what Millennium is. It's
Oh yeah.
and Lance Henriksen is the main guy who's a very strong presence. He's done a lot of Cameron stuff. He's
Mhm.
done a lot of B stuff, right? Been around forever, done a ton of shit going back to the 70s. What I always remember about Terry O'Quinn was here's a guy that when you're on screen with somebody, you don't look at and go, wait a minute, I got to act like a B-level guy because I'm in a B-level role in this scene.
Yeah.
And so when I think of like Madsen, I think if he were somebody talking to the president or Tom Cruise or any actor, all that, he's not going to come across as a lesser person, even if that character he's playing has a station underneath the guy. He's not going to overpower it like a Jeffrey Donovan or like Tom Cruise is always Tom Cruise. So
Yep.
Tom Cruise doesn't go into other people's movies. You have to go into his, basically.
Yeah.
So that's the thing about being flexible like Madsen is that you need a lot of people that can do that because you go, hey, we get Michael Madsen to do this role. Okay, that's great.
Oh,
I mean,
and
yeah.
he was, like I said, as you see in the photo here, him smiling. He literally was doing that on cell time. He was a prankster. He was a joker. He had fun. He was a big kid at heart. He said the only time is like when you basically is like I forget his quote was like it's like when you learn to become an adult is basically when you realize that you basically have kids. Then you basically that's when you become an adult because now you're more. That's a serious responsibility. Anybody can own a house or apartment they own, but it's like once you're in charge of something that you made, it's like it gonna keep it alive. He said like that was probably the most challenging thing for him, because it's like he said, he's a B movie, but even then, not all celebrities have a lot of money. That's why he did a lot of those movies. And then I'm not sure if he had any substance abuse at all, but I know he went through she divorced twice, and then got married a third time. So, but overall, though, like I said, like I'm looking at his movies. He was in War Games. I had no idea. I had to go back and like watch a clip.
You wouldn't know.
Yeah.
You would not know.
Beyond the Law with Charlie Sheen. Yeah, I know, right? Just look at his IMDb and like he's in Kill Me Again. Who's in there? We have Val Kilmer. Sin City was a great movie. What do people remember from Sin City? Jessica Alba dancing on the pole, or remember Bruce Willis.
I remember the little guy being extremely disgusting and graphic, being the assassin.
The little black that was Elijah Wood.
Yeah, exactly. Going, hey, look at this guy's a bastard. He must be. He ain't hating those Lord of the Rings checks. You know what I'm saying? But he's definitely trying to say, hey guys, I'm not that Hobbit anymore.
Yeah. So Michael Madsen was also, but apart from that, you had Mickey Rourke. Mickey Rourke was the main bad guy in there, very good guy in there.
Mm-hmm.
He was Marv. Other movies you look at, Madsen made appearance in The Natural, The Doors. Again with Val Kilmer. It just seems like he just did a lot of movies with Val Kilmer lately, or in early years. But then he did like Shark Season 2021. That was one of his more recent ones. You had Mulholland Falls, which looks more like a gangster movie. He was in Piranhaconda, dude.
Let me ask you a question, seriously.
Yeah.
I don't mean this is a slight to Michael or anybody. We're not talking Ill of the Dead here. Some actors I think of in this way. I don't know if you do or any of our listeners do.
Yeah.
But do you go, hey, I want to watch him in Michael Madsen film, or do you watch some shit B film and go, hey, Michael's in it, this could be okay?
A lot of times, if I watch a B movie, I'll just pick one at random, and then he'll pop up in there and be like, holy crap. And then the movie actually gets better because he has that natural charisma, like, and like, like, holy shit, Mike's in here? I'm going to watch it, yeah. Because, like, he steals the scene no matter what. It could be a horror movie, like you said, like Piranhaconda. That sounds retarded. Michael Madsen's got a role in there. I want to see what he's doing.
No Lavalantula, sir.
But the one big movie that kind of failed, but I remember it was based off a game, was called Blood Rain. He was in there too.
Oh yeah.
He was the head guy at part of charge of like basically the Watchers or the Brimstone Society, killing vampires, and he seemed kind of old in that too. But then again, maybe that might have been makeup, whatever. It was like 2005, whatever. And he just played a really great guy in there. It's kind of like how we talked about is it what's his name? Claude something? Like not Claude Mickelson. What's his the guy from Convoy? I forget what his name is.
From Convoy. We haven't
He was
talked Convoy.
Robert Ducky. He was the actor in there. He was a country singer too. Um,
You mean from Blade?
well, yeah, he was also in Blade as well. He played
You're talking Chris
Whisper.
Christopherson.
Chris Christopherson. Yes,
Oh
that's
yeah,
what it is. Yeah,
legitimate actor, country guy. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And said honestly, that's what kind of role he was playing. That Manson was playing in Blood Rain. He was playing a similar role, kind of like that.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, he's also in Chronicles of Narnia. He is in looking just like Croc 2007. uh, The Killing Jar 2010. Boarding Gate 2007. What shocked me is when I watched Die Another Day. I watched that like about a year ago, and seeing him in there, I forgot he was even in that. So
Diner
like,
is an excellent film, and we
so
talked about that
so
here
yeah,
about a year ago. I think during
he
the
wasn't
holidays.
in Diner. He was in the pilot for the show.
Yep.
He was also in another TV show that was or based off a movie that was supposed to get a pilot, and then I don't think it ever got a full season. But yeah, just going through his movies, man. Scary Movie 4. I don't think I've seen that one. I've seen the other ones, but apparently he's in Free Willy 3, The Rescue as well. Man with a Gun. You know, he had a Monster Mash was another movie, and he apparently had some other movies lined up too, come out later this year or after.
Uh-huh.
But like, yeah, everyone's gonna remember him from Reservoir Dogs because his quote is like, parents are there's two type of parents. There's the ones that have seen Reservoir Dogs that says, don't go near that man, go near that man, and then the other ones are like, hey, you're the dad from Free Willy. So like parents are kind of like confused because the kid will recognize him. You're from Free Willy, and they recognize him from from Reservoir Dogs, the scene with the knife in the ear and everything. Yeah,
He doesn't come across as somebody that I feel like I can trust to carry a film.
well, no,
I'm not
never,
saying he is or whatever,
no.
but like I say, what's a film? It's a bunch of extras and a bunch of not A-level
Well,
people.
you
You can
remember
have your one person everybody anchors on, but you've got to be able to fill it out. You
here,
can't have 5 scores on a team in basketball. You got to have 1 or 2 primaries, maybe some people that can fill in a few points here and there. And he's like the ultimate team player. Hey, Michael, I need you to come in and do this. Okay, pin me, pay me, kind of thing, right? You got to
yeah,
have your jobbers out there. And I'm not knocking him with saying it, but the point
no,
is you got to play off of somebody. And he was a guy that could do a heavy. He could be a little lighthearted. He didn't have to be all too serious. He does have a bit of that old school vibe, which going into the 90s, the way movies are changing so much, especially since about 91, 92, it's like, okay, things were just different than the 80s. And so
yeah,
I was trying to go through that phase at the time of saying, well, what do I like or what's stupid or not? And he's somebody that never irked me the wrong way. Or when I saw him, went, oh, I can't stand that change the channel kind of heat
yeah.
or whatever. He was just always solidly very consistent in there, and there's a lot to be said for it.
Yeah, looking through his quotes in IMDb, and you read the leading man thing. He's like, "Yeah, I'm a leading man trapped inside a bad guy's body, pretty much." But he'd also mentioned that he said nobody thought that Bogart was gonna be a leading man. He started off as a supporting character, and then he did like 7 or 10 films, and all of a sudden he became a leading man, and everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, like this guy's great," you
A
know?
lot of that is casting, right?
Yeah,
Getting the right movie at the
yep,
right time with the right role for
yeah,
you, and that's more important than, hey, if you can get this role, it's going to pay you life changing money. That's great. We would all take it, right?
yeah,
But something like that is just,
yeah. He said in 2004, he says, maybe I was just born in the wrong era, man. I'm a bit of a throwback to the days of the black and white movies. Those guys back then had a certain kind of directness about them. A lot of the screenplays, the plots were very simplistic. They gave rise to the type of the anti-hero that maybe I should probably be better suited for. Yeah. Yeah. But what was the other one he said? He says, my career has been very strange. My career is like a heart monitor. I get involved in a good project now and then keep things going, and then I make things that I work on that I hope are going to be good, so then I can make a living and keep a roof over my head. So those little monsters I have in my house. Every movie you can't be great, but no matter who you are. Even Marlon Brando made some clinkers. But he said, I grew up at a time where I watched actors like Humphrey Bogart and Robert Mitchum. Those are the movies that I liked and I responded to. They're all gone now. There's no talent like that anymore. There's no immensity of talent that exists like that in the motion picture industry. Even the movies are turning into a bunch of junk. I think that if they put a handsome face in there or a good looking body, and they're surrounded by with enough cars blowing up, that's going to be entertaining. But in the long run, it's just not going to last. It's all empty. There's no story anymore. Same thing is happening to the motion picture industry that's happening to the landscape.
Well, I've wondered, and Humphrey
Yeah.
Bogart honestly is the first actor I've heard this about back in the old studio days when you'd work for a studio, get paid a salary, and then they'd loan you out and stuff like you as a commodity, which is what you are. I think that he would make 3, 4, 5, 6 movies a year, and you're like, wow, how long does it take to make a movie? And you got your set pieces, small backlots, and whatnot. And now it seems like when you're involved in these productions, it can take 6 months, a year. Everyone wants to talk about how detailed worlds are and everything else there, and it's nothing but bullshit because you have to add extra stuff with CGI and unions and how much you can or can't work. And I look at Mazda going, if you worked on something like a straight to DVD or a TV movie and you could pop out 4 or 5 a year, why the fuck not? I mean, that's at least work. It's something to keep you sharp, keep you something to do. You never know what kind of revenue streams you might get from it. But it's different than finding, like, say, the Hallmark Channel niche thing where you can get a second career and make money there. So to me, I prefer someone like him that actually does act in a lot of things and not is on a movie that takes 6 months to a year to do it.
Yeah.
I really, to me, I just go, would I want to do that as an actor? 6 months on? No. What are we doing? Let's get it done. Let's bang this shit out. Instead, you're waiting and going back. And I know sometimes when you have somebody show up for a film and it's just like for a minute or two or whatever, you go, hey, this is only, I'm going to be contracted for only 5 business working days. So I'll show up at this time with scheduling and all that. But think about all he's had to juggle for all what he's had to do, even if the roles are just kind of half sandbagging or whatever. And there's by no means an exhaustive view of his collection that I could tell you about. I've just seen him in a few of the bigger films. I'm just telling you what I remember from watching him. Immediately, Species came to mind. It's 30 years ago, so he left an impression. That's better than what a lot of leading people could do today. People I see in a lot of movies, younger kids, and I go, yeah, I recognize them. I just don't remember if they're any good. That's something, right?
One of his more recent quotes, he says, like, I say my tough guy acting days are over, but then Humphrey Bogart made 30 pictures playing a tough guy. And it was until Maltese Falcon, that he was thought of a leading man, so it's like, and he also say his quotes was like, I like to diversify. I'm all about longevity. I want to be doing this for as long as I can. I've made, like, at the time he'd made like 72 pictures, and he says, like, I have made a lot of studio stuff, made a lot of low budget stuff. The fun in making independent films is that they're a lot more open and it's a lot easier to ad lib and create a character and collaborate with the director. With a studio picture, you're more controlled, and your whole environment, your whole presentation is a lot more monitored. So I said he had fun doing these independent stuff, and a lot of people look at that and it's like, well, because it's the first thing new, and this is natural. A lot of us do it. We look at IMDb and like, oh, I got 4 stars. I really don't want to watch it. But sometimes those are the better movies because the critics are just paid critics. And then there's a lot of people who just review bomb movies for whatever reason. I don't know. They just don't like certain genres, so let's review bomb. Like, everyone's a critic. The best movies I've ever watched were the straight to DVD movies. The Dolph Lundgren movies, I love those. His straight to DVDs, those are great. I literally, because it was like, the 90s. I was like, I'm watching the Dudikoff movies. Those aren't theaters released. Those are straight to DVD home video. I'm watching those. I'm like, how are these not bigger? Like, and some of them actually were popular. A lot of the movies that were flops always get the cult status, where the ones that were big, they made money, they kind of fade away. Like, it's weird how that is, but now we look at it now, everything says, oh, the best movie you haven't, it's like you haven't seen, or like there's like, he's the greatest action movie ever made today, and they say that over and over in all the trailers to try and manipulate in the thing, like, this is the best movie ever, like, you should go watch it, and then you go to watch it, it's like, I've seen this movie before. You're just repeating stuff from other movies. So, I mean, I love independent movies because, like, I love, like, sometimes the acting's so bad, but it makes it great. It's like The Room. The Room is like a perfect example of this. It's one of the worst movies ever made, but it's so stupid, it's funny, and it's a movie you can watch with friends. I wouldn't recommend watching it over and over again. It's not one of those types, but it's like, it's one of those movies. It's just a weird thing. It's like, Tommy Wiseau should never be allowed to be in front of a movie or a screen ever again, but like, it is just, one of those exceptional movies where it just everybody quotes it because it's stupid. It's like, oh, I did not hit her. I did not hit her. Oh, hi, Mark. It's like it's just so stupid. And a lot of the quota movies are, are just more fun for me. And Michael Madsen, hey, it was like he said, he was a big kid at heart. He loved doing independent movies. And he said, yeah, he said like sometimes they were shit, and I regret them. He's like, hey, I don't I don't blame the only person I blame is the person who seduced me into doing this movie. Pretty much, would tell me one thing, and I get there, it's like this wasn't what we talked about. So he's like, yeah, it's
Michael, keep your mouth shut and go. Just do your
yeah.
role there, bro. I mean, that's what it kind of comes down to.
Well, no, he's honestly I'd say that's more like the ones today who virtue signal and who can't act whatsoever. These guys would keep their mouth shut and they would just do the work. That was the 90s, man. Someone had interviews, and stuff. It's like, yeah, I think even Stallone back in the day, it's like I didn't care to watch the interview with Stallone, E.T. and all stuff. I didn't watch that. I would rather just go watch the movie. The only person who I would say was great in interviews was Robin Williams, because
really
he turned everything into just like fun. I watch all the clips with him,
cocaine.
No, he's a legitimately funny man.
He's a manic depressive, and his energy.
Oh, sure, yes, obviously, yes. But instead, he was this. Like I said, whether now we know the lining behind that, but I don't think it's always the case. So,
Yeah, to kind of wrap things up here again. A lot of people out there with a lot of roles with some you don't remember. So if somebody leaves an impression on you, I think that means something. It kind of like there's this old thought experiment way back in the day. It's not really valid anymore because there's no music industry anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But it would be like, hey, would you want to be somebody? I'm gonna use Vanilla Ice because everyone likes to shit on them, right? Would you like to be like Vanilla Ice and have that one huge monster hit that's the only thing anybody remembers? Ice Ice Baby. You played on this, people do mashups of it. Maybe you see it in a commercial, maybe you see it, whatever, depending on how you license it. Or would you like be in a band where you had several minor hits, you toured and this and that, maybe some people bought your albums, maybe you got to have a gold one here and there for several years, and then you just kind of faded into obscurity? Which career would you like to have? I don't know about you, but for me, my answer would be I'd rather be that one hit wonder. RDV, I've never said this before. I'm gonna put you on the spot. Ask me why.
Tell me why.
There you go. The reason why is because you've gotten to make an impression on somebody at a particular point in time that kind of went nuclear. It kind of like gained its own momentum. It snowballed and took on a life of its own for a sort of brief moment of time. You were a thing. You were something that mattered in the public's consciousness. Not that matters to me individually in terms of my ego or as a person, but in terms of the impact that you leave on people, I think that's pretty cool. So you're not going to have the Michael Madsen, oh man, this guy only did 10 films. Man, they all got to be masterpieces. Now this dude was like a 300, but you know what you're going to get. It gives you good vibes, So I don't know. It's just, there's not, I'm looking at all the younger actors saying, who's going to do what he did and act in everything?
You bring up a good point, though. It's like, I look at, and a perfect example for me for that would be like Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters was like all those guys working together. Outside of that film, doing other roles, didn't really shine as bright as Ghostbusters did with that collab, And like, I like Bill Murray, but
Bill Murray would be the only one I could say.
Yeah, Bill Murray outside. Harold
Ramis to me is a writer first, actor second.
Yes. Well, yeah. I mean, you had Dan Aykroyd. Dan Aykroyd was great on Saturday Night Live, but careers outside Blues Brothers, a lot of people like that. I was more interested in the car they're driving, and the antics of John Candy. It's like, but Ghostbusters was just like the right time, the right movie, the right personalities, and just with the science fiction, the fantasy behind it, capturing ghost stuff. And then I love kind of all that stuff. And you put it all together in one movie and you get the guys with the one-liners, Venkman with the one-liners. And then you have as far as they each had their own thing. And then you bring in Ernie Hudson, who was, I don't think he was even he was never part of the SNL group at all, where the other three kind of were, or at least I know Dan Dan
City and Chicago, and TV, all that stuff.
SCT was Harold Ramis.
Mm-hmm.
Eddie Murphy, not Eddie Murphy, but Eddie. I just had to say his name. Ernie Hudson. Yeah, he wasn't part of any of that stuff as far as I were. So it was kind of like you are the Ernie Hudson kind of guy coming in, like, and you're with all these things. It's like that's kind of cool, like to see that and how they interact. Yeah, but yeah, that's why I've always liked Ghostbusters, because it hit the right note at the right time. It had the good music, there was none of this stuff where they had to pander to anybody, you know. And honestly, I think that's probably Dan Aykroyd, one of his best movies that he's done. Now, I've never seen Dr. Detroit. I heard people say that's really good.
Awful.
See, I've heard that too, though, but I've also heard people say it's great.
Awful.
But
you judge yourself, sir.
Here's the thing, though. A lot of people say stuff is awful that I like. So I've come to realize, like, when people say like here's a perfect example of people saying good movies. Napoleon Dynamite. I don't get it. I don't understand it. To me, it's just like, what? It's like it's like all of a sudden, like, kicking yourself in the balls was considered cool and everybody's doing it. I'm not doing it. It looks stupid.
It's like those fake Shaolin monks that say, "Hey, you Michael Madsen, come up here. We'll train you anyway. We'll kick you in the balls." Well, no, there's no Shaolin monks. It's a tourism industry.
What was the other one? Bruno? And then Borat? I was like, what is it's just like this hippie nonsense, weird stuff. As like, I was like, no. I don't know, maybe it had to be like 15. Oh, I was gonna bring that up too. For those who are watching at home, watching this. So basically, if you're typing in live chat, it's called like the top fan, like, it resets every live stream. So basically, you get more points and you become the top leader. So basically, if you comment in here all the time, like in the live chats, you get a purple crown. It says you're your top commenter. It means you're here a lot of time. So other people who come in will see, like, hey, this person's been here, like they have like a crown. It means they're devoted listeners or whatever. And as the more you type in the actual, like, in the chat, live chat, or do super chats, you get more points, and you can be. And basically, it's like a bragging right. I'm the top commenter, so you get like the purple crown, and you can actually look at your points if you're on the PC.
Is that right?
Yeah, something they just introduced this for
because it just happened recently on the last.
Yeah. Twitch does this. You can give people badges. If someone's been, like, with your channel since the beginning, you can give them like a first, like a number one. It means it.
Jay Lucen is a number one, the big cheese, the head honcho, El Guapo.
Right now, if you look at the
the Duke of New York.
The Duke of New York. Dude,
the Duke of New York.
You bring up the Duke of New York. I'm thinking, like, he was a better mayor than what New York's had. Well, chandeliers on his pimp ride. Like, I want to watch and review that again. We gotta do those movies. Look, because literally,
let's wrap it up with the Michael Madsen thing. Let's not stray too far from. Here's my final thought, because you said something earlier, and I think it actually sums it up best the way I think of him. You're the 90s guy. I'm the 80s guy. I clearly remember him then and since then, and I always go back to, like, those types of movies, the decent VHS DVD type movies there, or even something that might be in the summer in the theater and he's got a supporting role. It's usually a decent flick. So to me, I like him in that role. I appreciate the fact he's around doing a lot of them. He's just a guy that, to me, he's a solid guy. I wonder, when we talked about doing him, I was like, he's not an A-lister. I'm like, you know what? It doesn't really matter, right?
No.
I mean, he's good. He's a great example of somebody you want to have on your team.
And that's the thing, is like, he's never, and he knew he was never a list, he knew his role. He didn't give a shit about that.
Yeah.
He cared about basically putting he had fun being the bad guy. He also had fun, trying to be the good guy in the movies, like, for free way. He's like, it was so freaking weird, because I was known for being the guy you don't want to go next to, you see him on the subway, because, like, that's the guy from Reservoir Dogs. He's a sick son of a bitch. but then like, the parents are like, who took him to see Free Willy, it's like, holy crap, he's versatile. He can do different roles.
Yeah.
And I like that about character actors who, Titus Welliver is one of those. Always plays the bad guy. And then he does this series on Bosch on Amazon.
And I know nothing about it except for Bosch. That's the whole thing, right?
Yeah. Well, and it's the thing. He played Harry Bosch. He was a good guy. But every movie, TV show before that, he was always the bad guy. So I like when characters can do that. Robert Duvall was not like that too. He could play a bad guy and also did play a good guy too. So yeah, there's a lot of actors, late actors. I would love to talk more about, like this in this kind of like format.
Yeah.
Obviously, Robin Williams is one I would love to do just deep dive into his stuff, his film archive. So
And he's somebody I grew up watching and seeing all from beginning to end.
his stand up. I love it because there's not a day goes by where I find something new. People uploads content with him, like doing stand up.
Just watch all the HBO specials of all these comics.
Yeah,
Eddie Murphy, Robin Williams, HBO. That's where you would
Richard
watch.
Lewis, was was another guy. It's like I only knew him from like the the Prince's or not Prince's Bride, what those Men in Tights. The mole kept changing every time we see him. He was a pretty good comedian, and him and Robin Williams on the HBO specials, just going back and forth, was just fun. And yeah, it's like I said, I love that's what I love about YouTube. That's one thing I like about it is that you can watch old stuff like that content that people upload. But that being said, let us know down below what your favorite Michael Madsen movie, if you have one, or what do you remember him watching any of the movies growing up as a kid or as an adult, And I implore you guys to go check out his IMDb list and check out, like, if you haven't, because some people don't want to watch Species because they're like, oh, it kind of sounds like it's horror, sci-fi horror. It somewhat is.
It's fine.
But
it's an alien that has to get impregnated.
I had no idea that he was in Hateful Eight. So Hateful Eight was the one I wasn't gonna watch, but now I'm kind of interested to watch, looking at who's in there, because I don't like Samuel Jackson. I'm not a big fan of his, but Kurt Russell's in there. You got Tim Roth is in there. Walter Goggins. I had no idea Walter Goggins was in there.
Kind of forgot that too with Walter.
Yeah,
he's so hot right now with his Walmart commercial.
And also Google, can you freaking update Michael Madsen's freaking photo when they look up Hateful Eight? It's showing a totally different actor right now.
Man.
Like, how dumb that is. Bruce Stern was in there too.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah, like I said, check out more of these guys' movies, and we'll see you on Tuesday.
To be determined. If you got any special requests, guys, let us know down below. Retweet us out. Reach out. That's all you got to do. We'll take anything you say that under advisement, as we often do. So I want to thank everybody for watching, listening. Our watch time's been going up. Our subs count's kind of flat right now. That's fine. People are getting the word out on it. I like it. Let us know if there's any other streamers that you think might want to do some sort of cross promotion. Let us know offline or whatever, so we can kind of discuss how we're going to go about doing it. And also, for those of you that just came in, we just did live Professor Pokes and I, season 3, episode 6, with the evil Jack Cassidy. A tremendous performance in a Columbo episode live. I strongly encourage you to check that out too. We've middle towards the end of season 3. That's the longest we've gone in any show except for Twin Peaks. So until then, guys, have a good night. See you Tuesday night. Good night now.
All right, guys. Enjoy your purple crowns. Drink responsibly.
That's right. Desert Rose.